Hello, listeners, and thanks for joining again or for the first time. Today, Eli be talking with Nancy Griffin, founder of Women, Worth, and Wellness. For over 30 years, Nancy has dedicated her efforts to helping women connect physical health, mental resilience, and financial confidence. As always, we are curious about the moment that sparks missions, and from there, we will explore why financial well-being is deeply tied to overall wellness, how mindset shapes wealth, the myths about women and money she's determined to break, and why courage might just be the secret ingredient to success. Plus, a light touch on what the future of work means for women in a world influenced by technology and AI. Welcome, Nancy, and thanks for taking time to share your insights with our listeners.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Delighted to be here.
I'm really excited to hear what you've got to share. And to follow up on my intro, what is the defining moment that made you realize financial well-being and physical health are inseparable?
Probably when I started into the wealth advisory business. What happens is you're recruited by a really top-notch firm, and they say, okay, you've got to go get some licenses because you can't just hang out a shingle and start into the business without having some credentials. So
Mm-hmm.
I went and got my credentials, and then away we go. And they said, okay, we've got everything ready to go, except the one thing you don't have is clients. You've got to go find your own clients. And it's like, okay, you're so excited to get into the business and so delighted you've passed all the exams that you had to go through. And you
Hmm.
think you've arrived until they tell you this. But then their advice was spot on. They said, look, the people you want to attract as clients are people to whom you feel you can add value to going forward. Because you're going to have a very, very long-term relationship with these people. And the
Hmm.
most important thing with wealth advisory is that you add value to their lives, period.
Mm,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
don't go ahead.
Well, I'm still connecting the physical health and the financial well-being. So I'm waiting. I'll let you finish. I didn't realize you weren't finished.
Okay, so I thought, okay, well, who would I like to work with? Who do I feel that I can, will fill the bill in terms of me adding value to their future? I thought, okay, I'm going to focus on women, not exclusively, but I'd already been through quite a bit myself personally. So I
Yeah.
thought this is an opportunity. And I knew that women were really starting to earn more wealth and were paying attention to putting things together. So as I started to work with women, and you meet with them one at a time, you start to realize what their entire scenario is. And more often than not, moms in families are expected to be the on-site nurse practitioner. So I'm
Yes.
thinking, how much knowledge do they have about this, that, and whatever else pertaining to health? Because they're expected to look after their parents and their in-laws and their kids and their staff and themselves. So I thought, you know what? If I'm focusing on women, I'm going to focus on women's health and started to partner with not-for-profit health-related organizations that were focusing on women. For example, in Toronto, we have this fabulous hospital called Women's College Hospital, over 100 years old, lots of incredible resources who were offering lots of different seminars and events. And so I started to invite my clients to come to these events. And as we went, I would charge them a nominal amount, like 25 or $50.
Yeah.
And so then what is being introduced is the value of charitable giving as it pertains to your net worth. Because any donation that you make to a not-for-profit, that is a deduction from your income tax return. But then to take
Yes.
it one step further, we know that more often than not, when people are giving, the true recipient is the giver rather than the person who's receiving because it enhances your self-worth. And so I then, as I started to put together wealth plans for my clients, we
Mm.
focused on health first. And a total wealth plan that is very sophisticated will have anticipated health-related challenges over time. For example,
Yep.
if you end up with a critical illness and you're not covered for income, while you deal with this, you may then have to draw down from your retirement account. So any wealth advisor who's not anticipating health-related challenges as time unfolds is missing the moment. So that's when I started to build it all in. But then to back it all up, our greatest asset is our health, more so than the amount of
Absolutely.
money that we have.
They're so tied together, though. I mean,
Yes.
you make a beautiful point. In some countries, the costs are astronomical, and coverage is also astronomical and minimal at the same time. The cost is astronomical, and then what you're covered for seems to be dwindling. So you make a beautiful point that your physical health is tied inexorably to your financial wellness as we go forward. So given that, if you could go back to the start, and this is what, 1995 about when you began, because that's 30 years, I'm doing
Yes,
the quick math. All
exactly.
right.
Yep.
I still
Yep.
got it.
Yep. No. Yep.
Um, so we're in 1995, and if you could go back then, what advice would you give yourself? And is it the same advice that you're currently sharing with women, or have you had more aha moments as you go forward? And we're talking from a founder perspective as well as from the content of what you offer your clients.
Okay, one of my new favorite words is amplify.
Yeah.
I think where I was at that moment in time and the framework that I created, I would only amplify the importance of your health because we take our health for granted. We get up in the morning and away we go. And we keep going until there's a showstopper. And when something stops us in our tracks, everything else comes off the shelf. We've got to focus on getting well because until we're well, we can't do everything that we wanted to do. So that's why
Yeah.
focus on your health. If you've got really good health now, that is fabulous. So the
Yeah.
key question is, what do I need to do in order to maintain this positive health scenario?
Yes. And, to your point about we wake up in the morning and we start going, there's quite a bit of data that supports the efficacy of positive thoughts first thing in the morning before you get into anything else. Anybody asking anything of you, or you diving into information and content and taking things in, is to say a few things, one of which could be, I am healthy, I am strong. And then that resonates throughout the day. So I like the first thing in the morning idea to help us cement and amplify what we already have. So it's nice. So I'm
The
curious.
other,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other key message first thing in the morning is I am worthy of making myself the priority.
This is amazing. So I read something this morning. It was just a little meme, and I'm reading it off my phone, and it says, just saw a quote that said, quote, the guilt you feel for setting boundaries is a sign of how deeply you were trained to abandon yourself. And now I can't stop thinking about how many times I've called self-respect selfish, how many times I've let discomfort in just to keep the peace. And no one teaches you that guilt might be a part of healing, that sometimes it feels wrong to choose yourself only because it was never allowed before. So that is exactly what you're talking about, that we are worthy of putting our oxygen mask on first, so to speak.
Correct. And then the key
Excellent.
is once you have your oxygen mask on, don't just sit there. Now you've got
What are
a
you going
whole
to
new
do?
pro- Yeah, exactly. What's next? Now you've got an opportunity.
Yeah. So is there a myth about women and money that you like to chip away at, or you've smashed completely, or we all need to focus on?
It's an ongoing challenge. I mean, more women now are paying more attention to it and
Hmm.
having a lot more respect for the power that it provides. Once you get that framework in place and you understand what it is and why it's so important and how it enhances your well-being. So the bottom line is that women just simply need to step up to it. And I just simply remind people what I said earlier is that you are the number one asset. And there's nobody in the world who's going to look after you as well as you will. And so that's why the starting point is you are worthy, you are important, you have an asset. So that is the starting point. And women, of course, will give it away quickly. So just make it that more powerful by having that much more confidence in your own being in terms of how much more you can add if you do make yourself first.
Well, I'm having a memory. I live in Australia and you live in Canada, and I hail from the US. So there's a different setup for how we manage retirement in the two countries that where I've lived. And in Australia, we call it a superannuation, and in the US, it's called a 401k. And the
Right.
super, I did a project for a CPA firm, and in that project, I was looking at a lot of data from a lot of their clients because it was transferring from paper to digital. And so I was absorbing all this data. And the thing that I noticed is women's supers are remarkably smaller than men's, mainly due to taking that time away to caretake for their family. And so how do we make up for that time?
Well, making up for that time is very, very difficult. It's
Yeah.
kind of getting ahead of it to begin with. How can I avoid giving it up? Because you
Well,
see the long-term implications. Like if you're in a relationship, you have a partner, and then all of a sudden that partnership is no more, you go your separate ways, and the settlement may not have been equal, and you've given up a lot for the benefit of others, and there's absolutely no currency to all of that except what you
mm,
have except what you have allowed to happen. So that's why you need to pay attention at every minute in the day to ensure that you're not creating vulnerability for yourself longer term. It's difficult because women don't want to be selfish. They don't want to put themselves first. But on the other hand, you have
mm.
to avoid having one huge vulnerability longer term.
Yes, and I think it's maybe is it that we don't want to be selfish, or is it that's the message that we are being selfish in order to take care of ourselves, right? When we make the effort to take care of ourselves. A story a friend of mine told me was she was pregnant with her second child, and had pelvic instability at that moment. And so could not do quite a few activities, bending, stooping, climbing stairs, things like this, regular exercise. Had found a Pilates class on the reformer that was made for pregnant women who had pelvic instability, was able to maintain her health that way while she couldn't walk. And her then husband told her to be grateful for her opportunity to have the Pilates classes. And I wondered about that because it seems only logical to take care of one's body, especially when pregnant. And so to be told to be grateful for that is an interesting comment from a spouse. I just sparked a memory there, and I'm wondering if that's what we're talking about because we're not allowed to take care of ourselves. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yes, definitely.
So, if we're talking financial stress, have you noticed, and we're talking physical health, have you noticed a way that financial stress shows up in the body, and how might we break the cycle?
Definitely. And a lot of it shows up from a lack of sleep because
Ah,
you're worried. Like you're worried. You're not on top of things. And it's all night long. What if, what if, what if, what if? But if you're working with a trusted wealth advisor, which I encourage everybody to do, regardless of how little or how much you have, those different advisors are there to deal with how little or how much you have. And so that's why you have to choose very, very carefully. You want a wealth advisor who has credentials, someone who has experience, but more importantly, you want somebody who understands who you are and what you're working towards, and expect that person to support you and help you achieve what you're striving for.
so I mean, I get this, and if finding an advisor, and financial or otherwise, is one step in breaking the worry cycle. I mean, we need to
Right.
kind of come at it from a different angle, if you will, than just constantly being in that cycle. Um, what about the women who are feeling stuck, both financially and physically? And they go, well, I certainly can't afford a financial advisor. I have three part-time jobs in order to make ends meet. How might we shift that mindset so that they, I mean, it costs money to find a financial advisor or any advisor. So what do we do to help the women who are struggling financially to start to make a shift on their own?
Okay, well, first of all, my greatest piece of advice is dentists don't even do their own dental work. So really, don't try to figure this stuff out by yourself. Really don't,
Mm-mm.
because you're not trained to know all the intricacies of possibilities. The other thing that you need is that personal dialogue. Because when you work with a health advisor, when you work with a wealth advisor, you have to get naked. You've got to share who you are and what is currently going on. Everything's got to go on the table so that that professional can address your situation completely. Now, with the wealth
Yes.
advisor, people will say, well, I don't have any money. I haven't done this before. Okay, every woman has a banking relationship. You've got a bank account somewhere. I would be very surprised if any woman does not have a bank account. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't women who don't have a bank account, but
Hmm.
most people do. And it can be all virtual, but every bank has advisors with whom you can work to build on what you've currently done with that banking relationship. And if
So
you're
you're
just
saying,
starting,
pardon, are those advisors generally, if you're a member of the bank, that would be a service that is afforded to
definitely.
people? Okay, so it's free.
Well, no, now I can't tell you that it's free,
Mm.
but it's an advisor who's available for you to help you build your plan for your future with your whole wealth scenario. Now, the basis of proper wealth advisory, the same as in health advisory. The commonality is in both of those, for those professionals to keep their standing, is the first order of business for them is they have to know who their client is. And you know, Elizabeth, if you go to a new medical practitioner, they'll have conversation and, well, why are you here? And what are you concerned about? The next order of business is they want you to have blood work. And as soon as they
Yeah.
get the blood work back, that validates exactly what you have told them, or they may see some surprises in there. So becomes the basis of from which they will work to build out a good plan for you going forward. Very same thing with a wealth advisor. The first order of business is they've got to really understand who you are with assets and liabilities and aspirations. What are we working towards? And what are your current plans? And
Mhm.
how can we take those plans and possibly improve on them?
So transparency and leaving your guilt at the door about whatever your spending habits are or your
Right.
income take or
Yep.
any of that, just that guilt thing that we were talking about earlier,
Yep.
it really
Exactly.
serves no purpose. So maybe that's the first step in breaking any of our cycles is is standing up and saying, I refuse to feel guilty about existing
Right. Right.
anymore. Yeah,
Yep.
so that's pretty good. Now, and this loops into some things that I know that you've put forth, which is one thing you've said is courage is the bridge between self-worth and success. So, what's the boldest leap other than starting your own business that you've taken in your own life, and what did you learn?
Well, just know that you're worthy of taking a risk. I did take a big risk with a big real estate development project, and
Okay.
that was most unfortunate because it was 2008 that brought
Oh
it down.
no.
Yes, no, I had terrific investors. I had really terrific investors. But you realize that people get nervous. I mean, it all worked out just fine, but people get really, really nervous. And so even though you're heading in a really challenging, positive trajectory with lots of bumps along the road, it may not become a reality to the extent that you wanted it to. So it's like, okay, so what? Now what? So you have to do a rewind. My new favorite word, other than amplify, is redirect. Redirect. Life is not a triple A1 positive trajectory through to the end. It isn't. Like this is why you need to be healthy, because you can't deal with all these bumps along the way. You really can't. Like if
I
you have allowed
agree.
stress to overtake your life and you're not sleeping enough, then you are not in your best possible mode to deal
No.
with all these things. And if you've taken on big risks, then it's even more important to be healthy.
You know, you're so right. And sleep, I love that you're focused on sleep because people poo-poo how important that is. And there's a lot of warrior mentality. So and so only sleeps 4 hours a day, and look at how successful they are, and wolf naps and this sort of nonsense. Perhaps there are some people who are wired in a way where they don't require as much sleep as the 7 to 9 hours that are recommended to maintain mental alertness. I don't know them personally. I know I feel better after I have 7 hours of sleep. So, and we have to recalibrate ourselves and refresh. So I like that you're saying sleep more. And so far I've got 3 words. So transparency, amplify, and redirect. And this is beautiful advice for any founder and really in business as well. If you're in large organizations, small organizations, you're starting, you're developing your career, being transparent about your thoughts, maybe
Right.
amplifying those to the right people and be agile. Does that resonate? I mean, and I like the alignment that you're making between a health advisor and a financial advisor being so similar. Um, so I'm going to jump a bit. I'm going to jump because we're hearing so much about AI. I'm curious from the wealth health perspective, how do you see AI influencing women's financial empowerment? Is it an opportunity or a threat? And why or how is it different for woman than man?
I think it will only enhance both. I think we'll have a much better read on what our health is through all sorts of new types of technology that we
Hmm.
haven't yet experienced. But I think we're going to be, much further ahead in terms of having a complete diagnosis right now, in terms of what your health status is and what the potential is for the future. With your wealth, certainly you're going to have a whole lot more information. But again, we have to be careful. One of the people that advises me has said, you can't just immediately go to AI for the answer. Like you've still got to keep your wits about you and you use those tools as an enhancement. Another person said with regards to AI, it's no longer a tool, it is a partner. So now we need to understand very clearly how we will engage with that partner.
Yeah, I like that. I've been calling it our new stakeholder. And
Yeah,
it's at the XCOM meeting with all the C levels and the directors, and it's a new, very brash, energetic,
yeah,
young go-getter. And
yeah,
whenever one of those personalities comes into an established organization, normally that personality is not hugged by everybody the way we're hugging AI. So I find it interesting. Do you see what I'm talking about? And can you help our listeners understand how we can remove the fear from everybody being so energetic about this new stakeholder, and how do we just settle ourselves with it instead of being afraid?
well, I think the same way we do anything when it's all newer, and that is remain calm, but proceed with determination to understand. At the same time, you're keeping your wits about you. Like up until now, you've known what your MO is, you've known what your priorities are, what your values are. And now
Hmm.
all of a sudden, this is coming at you like a big torrential rain. Okay, well, let's just take this a step at a time. And really, and as you're interacting with people who, those who know a lot and you feel you know little, ask them questions. Like, you have an idea of what my business is or who I am. What are the sorts of things that I should be paying attention to? This is what I know so far. How can I build on that? So again, it's no different than heading into new frontiers. A lot of it is questioning and understanding, assimilating, appreciating, and then accepting what you feel is going to be good for you. Now, maybe that wasn't the best decision, but it's better to make a decision than to still keep, it's like the spinning on our computers when we see it going around. Like, don't be that. Like, move it off the mark and keep on going, keep on learning. Like,
So we're,
really, get it
yes, well, see, a beautiful point, and we're adding curiosity to our list of words that we're developing here. That's
right.
kind of what's happening during this conversation for me. And the getting curious, I'm warming to that being far more of a mandate than I think most of the people are allowing it to be these days. There's, as you point out, there's a deluge of intent, incoming content, and and people are just taking it versus I have my values. I like that you brought that up. I don't think the advent of AI shifts our values.
No, not at all.
Right. It may change our priorities, right? And it could shrink the amount of time that we need to spend on certain things. And that's fantastic. But we still need the curiosity instead of accepting immediately these fast answers. Because we've seen that the data isn't necessarily factual, right?
Correct.
From the
And
AI
again,
tools.
right. And again, it's the worthiness factor. You are worthy of having a right to learn, even though there's a whole lot of stuff I don't know. I've got a seat at the table. I want to know. Like today, I was at an event.
Mm.
And I volunteered to get involved with AI in our community in terms of taking the lead to put together an event so that we can all learn. I know a whole raft of people that would welcome the opportunity to come to that kind of an event. And I don't have the answers, but my answer is, okay, let's get all these so-called experts in front of us and
Yeah.
have it there as a collective community situation because the questions are going to be very robust. And at the end of the evening, we've all learned some new things. And then it's like, where do we go from here? Do we break it all down into different sectors or do we break it down into different vehicles? Where do we go next? But don't just sit back and take it in and not and accept it without really understanding the possibilities. So at this moment in time, it's a huge opportunity for incredible learning so that we can be discerning about the choices that we make going forward in terms of partnering with AI that will
Mm.
enhance our well-being, our business, our personal lives.
I like this, and I'm wondering, are we going to be given the opportunity for that pause, or must we make it?
Well, I think that's a choice. I think that's a choice. Like this is too much. This is too much too soon, or this is too much. But on the other hand, I want to keep up. So what part of
Yeah.
this should I accept?
I was wondering, I have this question here in my list. What's one skill women need to thrive in the future of work that no one is talking about yet? And I'm wondering if we've already stumbled on that. And it's the curiosity piece and the willingness to be transparent. I think we wear a lot of masks in order to be successful, present what is expected. And maybe it's those two things together, curious transparency and just saying, it's a new world. What do you think?
It's like saying yes to the dress. It's like it is. It's like yes. You say yes. You say yes. Tell me more. Tell me more. What am I missing here? What do I need to learn? How is this all going to be an enhancement? Like you gotta get in the middle of it. We know
You,
that it is coming like a tsunami. And so the worst
mm,
thing we can do is go, oh God, I don't want to be part of any of this. Forget it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
not a
Well,
choice.
I've been hearing a lot. You're on LinkedIn,
Yes,
and I'm wondering if you're noticing there's a few posts about the fact that supposedly the algorithm is suppressing female voice. Do you find this to be a
probably.
challenge? So what about that then? I mean, we're in there, we're stepping up, we're being curious and transparent, and what if it's a you be quiet is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
response. So how do we combat the you don't get a voice?
Have different channels going all at the same time. Like broaden your base and be
Where have you
diverse.
gone to that works? What are you finding
We,
that works?
well, I will do events. I will do personal events with different people that are not, I may have acquired this content from or this contact from LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
I'm not doing a LinkedIn event. Now I have this contact, so you do a personal event. So
Okay.
just, we all love diversity and all its glory in so many
Hmm.
different ways. A whole wealth scenario has a lot of diversification in it. So in our lives, have a lot of diversification. Don't
I
commit
love
yourself to
that.
one thing only. Like it's back to the all your eggs in one basket. No.
Yeah. So, that's such an interesting comment to make. I was about to say not everybody loves diversity because there's a bit of a backlash going on in some spaces. And to make the alignment or the connection between if your portfolio in a business isn't diversified, you're at risk. That would
Correct.
be I think we need to extrapolate that out to the DEI world and say, if you're just getting super narrow, aren't you closing yourself off to a lot of brilliance with that move? Hmm. That's a
Elizabeth, think about your diet as well. Like you're not eating two foods only.
Well, I'm not. No.
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 No. So
No.
again, you've got diversification in your menu.
Yeah. That's I think that's a really compelling statement. Thank you for that. And so I'm wondering the workplace, right? If we want to design a workplace for wellness as well as wealth, what does that look like?
Well, first of all, people need to, I think the ideal workplace is one where that workplace values the individual so that they can value themselves. If the workplace doesn't value the individual and works them to death, that's not the right place to be. So it's time to move on. Go get yourself another opportunity elsewhere that is going to value who you are and what and your unique offering. That's where the Women Worth and Wellness trademark brand came from. I was in
Yeah.
this workshop with a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, and the fellow who created it, he said, everybody has unique abilities and everybody has their unique offering. So your key as an entrepreneur is to figure out what yours is. And as soon as you have found out what it is, put a trademark on it immediately.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Well done. Way to
Thank you.
listen to. Hats off, Nancy.
I know it's
So
pretty crazy, isn't it?
it is, and I don't. I mean, I agree with you that the individual support. Uh, it's not so much the individual as giving people a hug. I think a lot of pragmatists who are in charge of the purse in organizations, they're they're, uh, they find it tedious to talk about the individual and caretaking the individual, the adult in the workplace, and at the same time aren't our workplaces a design sort of left over from the eras of the factory where we have to
Hmm.
be on site for a certain number of hours and we have to look at people and that's where our productivity comes from and so much information we've learned going forward the data supports that we need to have a little bit of this in our day and we need to keep ourselves physically moving a bit in order for the mind body to work together and I would like to see a workplace that takes that into account because you get better outputs, not because you're
Right.
such a caring individual necessarily. I think the wealth from a wellness perspective in the workplace comes from supporting the human so that it has the
Right.
best outcomes for
Correct.
everybody. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're on the same page there. So on that. What is the or your simple daily habit that supports both health and financial confidence? What do you do on a daily to support
Well,
your healthy
I
self?
really try to have enough sleep. I do.
Yeah.
Because you know the difference between getting up in the morning and feeling like, okay, let's go, versus, oh my goodness,
Mm.
I'm not sure. I really am looking forward to blah, 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 whatever. So I think sleep is really important. I think, for me, I really get a lot of energy from like-minded people.
Uh,
And so being with people that will enhance who you are so that you
mm.
can enhance who they are gives me a tremendous amount of energy. I also like to give more than I take every chance I get. And that's just simple things. Like if you're extending yourself to somebody else and, offering to be a volunteer or offering to help out, offering, whatever, just a little simple thing. And actually, I saw a thing on Facebook a week ago that I've shared, and it was if you see somebody without a smile, give them one of yours.
Yeah.
Like, how simple is that? So it's that kind of thing, like little things like that, that can really bring your best forward. The other thing that I try to do is when the negatives pop up, just fade them to black because it's always the negatives that come up first. And we all know the benefit of a split screen scenario. So when the negatives come up, just fade them to black and default to the positives. And then train your mind to think about how can I make this positive even better, stronger, more positive?
Mm.
Like it's a mindset and it's kind of the redirect.
It is. And I wonder if our listeners are going to be saying, how? How do I train my mind to redirect? What's the trick that you've found successful?
Well, default to the simplest thing possible. Number one, be thankful you're alive, period. Because
Yeah.
there are lots of people who are struggling in the world. And so it's a privilege to
Mm.
be alive and to have a day ahead like you have a day ahead. So
Yeah.
just, default to that as a plus. Okay, if I'm happy to be alive, okay, how can I make this day perhaps a little bit better than it was scheduled to be? How can I bring some joy into these meetings that I'm going to or this work that I have to do? Like ask yourself those questions. And it's the simplest little thing that often can make a huge difference. Another thing is reaching out to somebody that you haven't talked to for a while. The other thing I love to do, and now my time's running out, is putting notes in the mail. We're
Ah,
in Canada, we're talking about having our mail service, severely curtailed. Whoever gets a
yeah.
note in the mail? Really,
I love
whoever gets a
snail
note?
mail. Yeah. It's
Exactly.
yes. Well, I mean, letter writing is a lost
Right.
form of communication, really,
Yep.
where because email's so instantaneous, people don't even say hello anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
so I like the snail mail. I think there's a bit of a, with the advent of our new stakeholder, there's a bit of a longing for disconnect from tech. I
Yes.
know a friend of mine was inquiring, can you get a landline anymore? Because I don't want a smartphone. I don't even want a dumb phone. I don't want a phone that trails me around. I just want, and I was like, ooh, you're going to get an answering machine too? And you like record music on it like we used to for your
Right.
snappy outgoing message. And she's like, can I? I was like, I don't know that you're going to be able to get a landline installed. I don't know if they are going to allow it. And if they do, it will be expensive. And she was like, it is expensive to install a landline, which is interesting. And I do
Yes.
think that in real life, as much as people want to work from home, they're struggling to find community and
Right.
connection with all of the tech. So I think it is important for community-based programs, these events that you're talking about to get into real life. We need to connect more person to person.
Well, I'll give you an example of a conversation I had the other day on a podcast because we were talking about, I'm always on about having a trusted advisor for your health and your wealth. Okay. Well, if I don't have one for my health, and I want to learn some more about how I can be healthy. How am I going to do that? The same way I mentioned, everybody pretty much has a banking relationship. Just
Mhm.
about everybody has a hospital close by. Like if you had to call 911 and they came and scooped you up, where are they going to take you to? Go to
Well, if
them.
I dialed 911 in Australia, I would get nothing. Actually, it's
Okay.
not true. It connects to 000. We do 000, but because 911 is in so much film,
Okay.
yeah, it forwards to 000.
It's
That's interesting.
redirected,
Yeah,
redirected.
yeah. Nice one.
Anyway, I said to her, you've got a local hospital. Just go in and say to them, if they're not offering seminars and events, ask them if you could host an event at the hospital. And would there be a doctor who could be a guest speaker? And then what happens if they say yes, then you will organize it, you'll invite people, and guess what? They'll invite people too. And it won't be long before they're thinking this is a great idea. And this is a great way for you to not only learn, but you're also building your brand as somebody who cares about your own health and other people's health as well. Like, in other words, don't wait for the world to come to you. Get out there and do something. I was on a webinar with Forbes. They were doing a summit in New York. I was not there in person, so they did offer an online option, which was fabulous. One of the guest speakers was Demi Moore. She was one of the afternoon speakers, and she said, "Life happens for you. It doesn't happen to you. It's like there it is. What are you going to do with
Mhm.
it? How are you going to make the most of this that's being given to you?" And often we think about life happens to us, and it happens
Yeah,
to us when something has gone wrong. It's like, why me? Blah, blah, blah. And you can see how the thinking is completely different. Like if you're thinking that life
absolutely.
happens for you, there's your opportunity. How am I going to maximize this opportunity?
More of an invitation than a command. And
Yes.
that's really resonating with the up and coming generations. Um, I know clinical hypnotherapy is a rising intervention to help mental health. And the consideration there, a lot of people may hear hypnotherapy and think of, I'm going to do something to you as the
Mm,
hypnotherapist, which is an inaccurate picture. What it is unlocking the patient mind so that they no longer run their cycles. And so it's a
super.
different, yeah, yeah, and it's an
Yep.
invitation. Are you
Yes.
ready to do what you say you want to do? So if somebody is ready to take control of their financial future, what is the number one, other than the financial advisor at a bank, or what is a resource or tool? Maybe it's really accessible and free that someone might take to begin with. What could they do? One tool.
I'm not sure that I can answer that other than to say step up to it. Step up to it. Every country has different offerings.
Hmm.
We certainly know that there's a plethora of information online. So it just determines how you take in information. For me, the best way for me to take in information is to speak with someone. And
Right.
so, but that isn't necessarily so for everybody.
Hmm.
You can read and understand, but then to validate all of that, often it's having that relationship with the person. I think that the number one priority is just to step up to it. Know that it is so important in your life, but the
Hmm.
magic will only happen if you own it. And owning it means that you educate yourself and work with somebody to help you.
I think
To,
discipline is also important in financial wellness, as it is in physical wellness. You must
right.
continue. You can't be and then just stick, right? You
No,
have to
no,
keep
no.
exercising and keep eating the right foods and things like that. And one tool that my bank offers, and I'm in Australia, so it may not be everywhere. I don't know what products are around, but it's free and it's in their online banking app where you can set up your budget. You get alerts for
Perfect.
how you're spending your
Won-
money. You can sort it into categories and you can say, wow,
Wonderful.
I really did this a lot last month. Or look at that, I reduced my spending in an area that was unnecessary. And so maybe take a look listeners at what tools you don't even know you've got because
Right.
you're not being as curious as you might. And there's ways to get at least a good view of your budget. And we all have one, even if it's small. We
Right.
know where the money's going if we track it and then how much is coming in. So I think those are pretty handy tools.
That's a great tip. Great tip. Really, really
Thank
good.
you. So now, if a woman, and I say woman because you're mostly focused on women, if she's going to make a big financial decision, let's say I feel getting married is a big financial decision. Also, perhaps buying a house with a partner or without. What's one question we should all ask ourselves before making a big financial decision?
Well, any one of those moments, you need to really, really get a handle on your vulnerabilities. If you're getting married and you're buying a house, how do you own that house? Is it owned as tenants in common or is it owned as joint tenants? Now, I'm talking about the way it's defined in Canada, but
Right.
tenants in common means you and I can own the house together, but I can will my portion to somebody else and you can will
Uh,
your portion to somebody else. Whereas joint tenancy means that something happens to you, it immediately rolls to me. And
I
so,
see.
really, really important. A scenario recently is this couple did marry. Mrs. has some vulnerabilities, and it's kind of anticipated that this may not last. And so, well, how is the property owned? Well, the property's owned as joint tenancy because often, love gets in the way. Love and reality in today's situation gets in the way. So every step of the way, it's important for both parties to understand what that financial arrangement is and how each of them is protected in case something goes wrong. The other thing that I talked about a couple of times was how fragile trust is. When you're partnering with somebody else, you spend a lot of time, a lot of dialogue agreeing that this is a good thing. Let's go forward. Let's partner. Let's buy a house. Let's get married. Let's do all those things.
Hmm.
And then 5, 10, 15 years later, something has happened. Something's gone wrong. Well, possibly it's because you didn't keep that dialogue going. Like you've just kind of gone in separate directions. And then guess what? Surprise happens. And then you're kind of suspicious of what's going on. And then once you lower the microscope on your suspicion, that's when you're really challenging that trust factor. And that is the worst. You never want that to happen. You
No.
always want to be building that base with confidence and with respect and with a lot of trust. But in order to have that trust, at every step of the way, you need to understand what your potential vulnerabilities are. And these are questions that you can ask as a couple in front of that trusted wealth advisor. Because when you go home, you're not going to have that conversation. And if you
No.
did, you probably don't have the answers. So these are
Probably not.
questions to ask in front of that trusted wealth advisor. Bless you.
Thank you. I was trying to keep that in
No,
a little bit.
no, no, not good, not good.
No, we're with the trust factor and vulnerability, we're back to curiosity and transparency. And in the beginning, if we're being true to ourselves in relationship, then it's a bit easier to be transparent and truthful. And then to your point, maintaining that, you need to have the advisor on your emotional wellness as well throughout, as well as physical and financial. And I'm wondering, what do you think about changing your name as a woman? Is there benefit to it? Is it maybe something women might consider not doing going forward? Because if it untangles at some point, is it better to just not have married that part of yourself?
I think that's a personal decision. That
Yeah.
is something that I have a really, really good friend whose husband turned out not to be a really nice person. She had taken his name.
Mm.
And, fast forward many, many, many years. And I think at the point where she realized he wasn't a great guy and they weren't together and they went their separate ways. And then she just kept his name. And it's like, well, I think maybe she kept his name because of the kids. That's probably why she did that. Because at
Hmm.
that point they did have three children. So she probably did. I mean, I'm now realizing that now that it was easier to keep the name than not. So it just depends. Everybody has a personal preference. If you choose to have a hyphenated name, that's what you see a lot of. And some women do just keep their own maiden name to begin with. So it just depends on what your preference is.
So, from a legal or financial
No,
wellness
doesn't
perspective,
matter.
there's no,
That's your
okay,
name.
well, that's, yeah,
No.
right on.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready to do some rapid fire, Nancy? Just
Sure.
for fun,
Let,
kicks and
let her
giggles.
rip.
All right. Well, actually, maybe before we do that, why don't you tell me, is there anything that you want to share with the listeners that we haven't touched on that you think is important for them to know?
I don't think so. You've done a good job of asking me a lot of questions.
I like getting an A plus. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Plus, 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 triple A1,
Woo!
plus, plus, plus. Why not?
All right, well, let's go into that rapid fire then. Now,
Okay.
remembering that Nancy hails from Canada, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Really? All right. I don't know what the king is going to have to say about that, but shh,
He's,
mum's the word.
I might have some words for him too.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Listen, besides sleep, because we've covered that, one wellness habit that you swear by.
Walks with your dog, and I need to have longer walks. That's my reality right now. Yeah.
I think bonding with an animal is so, so
Yeah.
good for the human psyche.
Yes.
Um, if you could have dinner with any future thinker, who would it be?
That's a good question. Well, I'll tell you who, Melinda French Gates.
Tell me why. Tell me more about that.
Well, this one woman that interviewed me for her podcast, she said, Nancy, because my definition on LinkedIn is that I'm a legacy advisor to accomplished women. And she
Hmm.
picked up on that immediately and she said, okay, how would you define an accomplished woman today? Would it be the same as you always have? Well, that was a showstopper. And I thought, no, we've spent a lot of time arriving. And that is an accomplishment because once you arrive as the VP or the CEO of whatever, you've arrived. But my definition of an accomplished woman today would be, okay, you've arrived. Now what? Do something. Like make the world a better place. Because up until now, primarily it's been you getting there. Then now you've
Yeah.
arrived. And
Hmm.
so that's why I say Melinda French Gates, because she's been given all of this money through no fault of her own. And man, is she making a difference. She's being very public with the difference that she's making. So a fabulous role model. I think she's the best.
I like that. I think I'm talking about her when heard the other day that someone was giving her a hard time for where she was giving money, and she heard that and doubled down on her donation.
That was Mackenzie Scott. That was Mackenzie
Oh,
Scott.
wrong person. All
So
right.
Jeff Bezos is and
Oh, okay.
it was Elon Musk saying, stop giving all that money to those women's organizations. And she doubled it. It's like,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you very
Well, let's
much.
talk about her too.
Amazing. No, I mean, good for them.
It's a very strange comment from Mr. Musk. Why would we stop giving money
Exactly.
to? It's so silly. So, what's a guilty pleasure binge? If you're going to do it, what do you do?
What's a guilty pleasure? I probably drink
Binge.
too much wine. Drink too much wine.
What kind of wine? What's your
Well,
varietal?
I normally prefer white wine, but the other night I opened a bottle of red wine and it was really tasty. So I might have a glass of that after because it was quite tasty. So
Well,
that
the weather's going colder.
yeah, the other thing that I like is bubbly. So I often, Prosecco or it's not champagne, it's bubbly. I just call it bubbly. And
Right.
often if we have guests, I've always got a bottle ready to go. And more often, like really just to celebrate the moment before we get underway here. And they'll say, "Well, I really don't like that." And I say, "Well, that is just terrific because I do. I'll have yours."
Great.
Right. Right,
The
right, right.
widow Clicquot, She had
Yes,
a, I never drink champagne except at breakfast or when I'm thirsty or when I'm eating or when I'm not eating. I was like, yes, that's
amazing,
fair.
amazing. Yes,
All
good
right,
for
and
you.
here's my, yeah, yeah, good for you. And here's my parlor game that I like to play in the studio. What is your current first world problem?
What is what
Your
is my?
current first world problem. Yeah, your personal current first world problem.
You mean what in the world's going on?
Well, no, I'll tell you one of the answers that a friend gave me when I asked her to play this game that I thought was really ideal because the game is really meant to highlight our gratitude. And so she said, "Oh, I've got one. I get really frustrated when my cleaner doesn't put my bedside tables back exactly where they were after cleaning underneath them." So I was like, well done. She's angry that somebody moved the table to clean and didn't put it back right. That's a first world problem. So, what's your current first world problem?
I don't know.
Don't have one?
I don't, nothing comes to mind immediately, but I'm sure there's a bunch of them somewhere. Probably that
Let's
my husband
see.
doesn't vacuum enough.
That's an age-old problem.
Exactly.
I think, let's see. I don't know if I've used this one before on previous shows, but my cat has to have calm kibble, or else she's sort of like full of anxiety. So we have to buy special
No.
calm kibble. Yeah.
And is her name Princess?
Oh no, it's Ladybug. Ladybug.
Princess
Hey
Leia?
man, you would like the cat with the calm kibble far more than you like the cat without it.
Yes, definitely. No, no, no. You've got to keep your pets happy. Pets must be
Absolutely.
happy.
Well, she has
Definitely.
a really good way of showing us if she isn't happy and it smells. So yeah,
Excuse
let's
me.
give her the
Yes,
calm
excuse me.
kibble.
Right. Good for you. Well, you've got
Uh,
her number.
Nancy, this has been fun, and I hope educational for our listeners. What I'm coming away with is stay curious. It's the best thing with the deluge of information. Practice transparency, even if you're not totally trusting because you trust yourself, and stay agile, right? Stay out there, keep moving. Um, Anything that you want to add?
Just get in the middle of things, especially AI. Like just step out and step up, figure it out,
Train your
ask
tool.
questions. Right.
Train your tool.
Get in
Yeah.
the middle of it. Get in the middle of it, and you'll be very happy that you did. And take your girlfriends with you. I mean, don't try to figure it out all by yourself. But as a pack, get out there and sort it out.
Yeah. Straighten the crown and never let anybody else know that your friend's crown was
Exactly.
crooked. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right, listeners, that's a wrap on today's conversation with Nancy Griffin. I hope you're walking away with fresh ideas on how physical health, mental resilience, and financial confidence all connect and why they matter for the future of your work. If you'd like to learn more about Nancy and women, worth, and wellness, head to the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who's ready to future-proof her mind, body, and bank account. And don't forget to subscribe so you know what's coming next. Thanks for listening, and thank you for joining, Nancy.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Well done. Keep up the great work you're doing.
Oh, you're lovely. Thanks so much.